Igniting community. Learn, share, and grow. Like and subscribe below.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. I'm Doris Forrester, and I'm back for another Global Gender Chat. This week was supposed to be part 2 of the femicide chat, but I found as I was researching and trying to find more data and looking at what was going on in the world, I wasn't finding much. And what I presented last week was pretty much it. So I'm going to keep digging, and as soon as I come up with anything concrete or anything substantial, I will do a part 2 to that talk. I was also going to go back to the safe places for women to travel and the unsafe places for women to travel, but due to what's going on in the world, traveling won't be something that we'll be doing for the next little while. I'm going to put that one on hold, and I thought what I would do for the next few weeks is go through some of the data that goes into making up those indices that I have presented in the past. Today I'm going to focus on fertility, and I'm going to go through some of these other pieces of data that go into looking at equality of women and what countries are the best places for women to work and live versus those that are not, and where women are truly valued and have equality. And again, remember, I'm not a professional in any means. I'm just a teacher that loves studying about the world, and this is something that I have some passion for. And I think population data is my absolute favorite. And I'm going to start with fertility because that is the key indicator of the development of a country and the position of a woman in that country. And fertility is the average number of babies a woman is expected to have in her lifetime in a specific country. A lot of stats are collected and put into that actual number that gets spit out, but basically replacement is anywhere from 2.1 to 2.3. I've seen that it's increased to 2.3, and that is to account for a woman, the male partner, and then the 0.3 or the 0.1 accounts for women that choose to not have children or cannot have children. And so in order to replace our population, every woman should be having 2 or 3 babies. And we're seeing that there is a connection between income and the number of babies a woman typically has in a country. And so if you look at this graph here, it just shows you basically from the 1800s to 2017. I'm going to update that and look at the projections in the future. So this is global fertility. And you can see that it didn't really change for a long, long time. Women were having, 5 to 6 babies. And then we had a little decline during the Depression and the war. And then we had the baby boom and the fertility rates spiked again. And in about 1965, we start to see, after 1965, a huge global decline. Part of this was after the war, the economy, women starting to work, women starting to go to school in the higher income countries. And the availability of the birth control pill that was released to the market in 1960, we see a huge drop in fertility. So now we're sitting here, according to this set of data, at 2017 at 2.5 babies. That's globally. So we know that our population growth is declining, and there is a connection between wealth and the number of babies a woman has. So in order for women around the world to gain equality and to have equity, they need to be having less babies. And so the focus should be, if they're having less babies, then they can go to school, they can enter the workforce, and they can have a larger say in what's going on in the world. So let's look at some data. So this is for the world, and we could add data, but I'm just going to show from 1950, and we'll move on. And you can see that it's really slow. There's the Depression, there's the you can see the baby boom, and basically the trend has been downward. So worldwide, most countries are experiencing lower fertility rates, and the world population is slowing down. And what we should see is that females should be getting empowered. So this is where the laws need to be put in place, and I always say an easy fix. It's an easy fix to put the law in place. What becomes difficult is to reculture the country to accept the law and actually put it into practice. So in 1950, world fertility was 5.5, and then we had that little dip And I think it peaks, it starts to go down slowly, but then the birth control pill comes in around this point and we see huge decline. And here women are starting to gain more independence, more rights. It's more acceptable for women to not be married, or to be married and to be working. Women are prolonging the age that they're getting married and that they're having children. And a lot of this was happening in the higher income countries, and the lower income countries are experiencing that right now. And so the hope is that as you bring the fertility rates down, women become empowered. Okay, and then we can see that 2020, it's down to 2.44. And remember, replacement level is 2.1 or 2.3. Replacement level in the lower income countries is actually higher because of access to healthcare and women's health. And so it's actually 3.5. But you'll see that a lot of the lower income countries have fertility rates that are much higher than that, but we're seeing general trends coming down. So what needs to happen as that fertility rate comes down is that women need to have opportunities to go to school, and they need opportunities to work. And that's where the government rules and laws come into place. And that's where we need to start to see a reculturing. And we might see that in one generation, too. It might take 3 or 4 before we start to see it, but hopefully it's the first step. If we look at the map, we'll see at one point we did have countries when I was in university that were in this area, but you'll see that none are highlighted. So fertility has come down from that point. 7 to 8 babies, again, no countries there. So we're looking at Niger, which is the highest fertility rate right now. And if we click on it, we see that 6.6 or 7 babies per woman right now. And so that number needs to come down. That number will come down as that country becomes more economically developed. They have a lot of issues. They're landlocked. They're at a disadvantage there, and they're disadvantaged for, that's one of the big ones. And they're not as economically developed. Okay, so if we keep looking, there we'll see the 5 to 6. And like I said, when I was in university, that all of Africa would have lit up in parts of Asia as well. There's our 4 to 5, and there's our 3 to 4. And then this is getting on to replacement level. And most of the world is here, between 2 and 3 babies. And then this is the high income countries, between 1 and 2. And this becomes the issue. They're not replacing their population. And we're seeing that each of these countries are having, their fertility rates are coming down every year. Okay, and there's no country at 0 to 1 yet. Singapore is very, very close. It's lower than 1. So some women are choosing not to have babies and some are. And if we look at the table, we can see, I'm just going to scroll. You'll see 1950 to 2020. And you'll see that I think every country has experienced huge declines. So in 70 years, Algeria, for example, went from 7 to 2.94. I just wanted to look at Niger because they're number 1. And this data is only as good as the countries releasing it. And do I have... There's our least economically developed countries, from 6.54 in 1950 to a 3.87. So we see that it's almost half, which is a good sign. And Niger, sorry. Niger. So they've just gone down slightly. So you can see it's in 70 years, their fertility rate really hasn't gone down. So in order for that country to become economically developed, we need to see women having less babies. What goes into that is women's ability to work, women's empowerment, women's going to school and getting an education. So this is where our country needs to make a choice. Bangladesh did that. Their fertility rate came down. So I just want to show you Bangladesh. And they went from a low-income country to a middle-income country. And the goal is in the next 5 years to become a high-income country. And with that comes the benefits to women. So look at theirs from 1950. They went from a 6.23 to a 1.99. They're below replacement level. And it's good for women, but maybe not so good for population growth. Okay, the other one I wanted to go to was Rwanda, because Rwanda's economy was really growing as well, and I talked about that a lot. 7.92 to 3.94. So you can see big declines in fertility. So this is one of my favorite sites to go to, but my all-time favorite one is Gapminder, and this will show you the connection between, I'm just going to move this over, between income. So this is GDP per capita, and babies per woman, which is fertility rates. So the color of the bubbles match the continent. And so there's some geographic regions here that I don't really agree with, but like I think, yeah, there's some. Actually, they've changed them. Oh yeah, like Oceania's with Asia. The Middle East, I think, should be brought out on its own. North and South America, I think, should be separated. So basically, the size of the bubble corresponds to the size of the population. And, you can click on any country and it will tell you the fertility rate versus the income. And this is in 1799. And you can see that it's almost like this. The fertility rate was quite high. For most countries, they were between 5 and 7 babies. So if you play this, I hope that works, you can see the countries that are moving, but the income's not changing. So there's maybe some war, some conflict, some disease, some famine that's going on and reducing women's ability. And you can see the countries sliding from side to side, which is kind of neat to watch. And then you can investigate like specific countries, and that's what I would normally do. And so what we should see, we start to see the incomes going up of Europe and of North America. And you can see the war in particular, how it slides back down. But you're seeing this big group of European countries with low fertility and high income. And now look at China and India, because they had actual policies. So the one-child policy of China and the 2 is enough policy had an impact. But you start to see the high-income countries, middle-income countries, and then you have the lower income countries, but having higher fertility rates. So there is a connection or an interrelationship or a correlation between income and babies per woman. So the key here is to get the fertility rate down and empower, hopefully as a response or as a consequence or an impact, as income goes up and fertility rates go down, women become empowered. This is one of the key components of this. And so next week I'm going to do another one, maternal mortality, and we can look at some connections between health and women empowerment. So that's all for me for today. Have a good day. Bye for now.